Okay, this video or recording should be pretty short because chapter 17 is short and sweet. And the book and the PowerPoint does a great job at an overview, so my recording video will be pretty short. Anyway, all right, chapter 17, we have reached capital expenditure budgets. So reading just directly from page 197, capital expenditures involve the acquisition of assets that are long-lasting. So this is long-term, over a long period of time, such as equipments, buildings, land where a medical office is, whether that's leased or owned, etc. So that's the type of budgets that we're talking about. Capital expenditure budgets usually intended to plan, monitor, and control long-term finance issues. Operational budgets, on the other hand, generally deal with the short-term revenues or expenses necessary to operate the facility. So two big differences there. So this chapter is talking about the capital expenditure budgets. So long-term is what we're thinking of. So first part of the budget for the spending for capital assets that have already been acquired or are in place. Part two represents the spending of new capital assets. So again, on page 197, the second paragraph, the first part of the budget, of the capital expenditure budget, is what you already have. The second part will be what you want to buy, what you want to acquire. So existing assets, part of the budget forces planning questions about whether existing equipment should be kept, or do we do improvements, renovation, etc. Then the new capital asset part of the budget forces more planning questions regarding expansion, creation of a new facility, department, program, new equipment, whether it's medical equipment or computer equipment, new programs, etc. Budget construction tools, moving forward in this chapter, talking about how the capital expenditure budget is constructed. It's predetermined by the organization. So what we do at a hospital would be very different than what we would do at a medical office. And honestly, what a dentist does may be very different than what a hand surgeon does. So wherever you go to work in this realm, you'll have a format or a template, if you will. So then the chapter goes into the cash flow reporting. Cash flow concept is explained very well on page 198. There are 4 different methods for reporting cash flow. I'm not going to read that to you. So again, the book and the PowerPoint do a great job at explaining. Table 17.1 is just a visual for you to look at. And it's also figure 17.1 is another good illustration. Budget inputs are reviewed. Startup cost concept. Startup is really expensive. Well, I guess it doesn't have to be, but it can be. So it's very important to consider that type of stuff. So funding request, whether you are in a medical office, hospital, outpatient, private surgical suite, like endoscopy or something, you have to request this money. So there's a process of requesting the funds, and then the different types of proposals are explained on page 201. I'm keeping flipping. Again, you guys, please let me know if you have any questions, but I feel like this chapter is pretty straightforward. Acquiring capital assets for future use, evaluating capital expenditure proposals. That is up to the higher management, folks in that role. Once you decide how much you want to ask for funding, then you create your proposal, list out all those requirements. That's when the hospital management, or not hospital, but the medical office management, whoever's in charge, will review the necessity of the request, the cost of capital for the organization, and what the return could be on those investments. There's a return and evaluation process on page 203. And there is not necessarily a worksheet that goes with this chapter. That's why there's not one provided. You are welcome to look in the back of your book and review the activities if you want to, just for extra. And then, of course, Appendix 17A, that is a great section to look into the further discussion of budgeting methods. Let me know if you have any questions.